In April 1912, the most famous ship in history struck an iceberg and disappeared beneath the Atlantic. More than 1,500 people died. For over a century, one question has remained. Was Titanic simply the victim of bad luck? Or was this disaster made worse by human decisions? Tonight, Titanic stands before the court of history. Accident or arrogance? You decide. The charge is simple. Did human decisions turn a collision into a catastrophe? The prosecution begins with speed. Titanic received multiple warnings about ice ahead. Messages arrived from nearby ships reporting dangerous conditions across the North Atlantic. Yet Titanic continued at nearly full speed. The prosecution argues that the warnings were clear. Several ships reported ice directly ahead. Officers knew the route was becoming increasingly dangerous. Yet the ship maintained her pace through the darkness. The prosecution says that speed reduced the time available to react when danger finally appeared. Count 2 concerns lifeboats. Titanic carried 20 lifeboats. That was enough for around 1,178 people, but there were far more passengers and crew on board. The ship met the regulations of the day. The problem, says the prosecution, was that the regulations were already outdated. When disaster struck, there simply was not enough room for everyone. The prosecution argues that this decision transformed an accident into a tragedy. The iceberg may have caused the collision, but insufficient lifeboat capacity increased the loss of life. For the prosecution, this was not one mistake, it was a chain of decisions. But the defense argues that hindsight is not the same as guilt. Titanic complied with the safety regulations of its time. In fact, the ship carried more lifeboats than the law actually required. No passenger liner had ever needed enough lifeboats for everyone on board. The standards reflected what the world believed at the time. The defense also argues that the iceberg itself was unusually difficult to spot. The sea was exceptionally calm. Without waves breaking against the ice, lookouts had far less warning than normal. The night was dark. Conditions were deceptive. The defense says the crew faced an extraordinary situation few sailors had ever encountered. Not arrogance, not recklessness. A tragedy few people believed possible. The defense argues that the officers acted according to the knowledge and standards of their era. The disaster shocked the world precisely because so many believed a ship like Titanic could not fail. So what is the verdict? The iceberg caused the collision, but the evidence suggests human decisions increased the scale of the disaster. Speed, lifeboats, warnings. None caused the disaster alone. Together, they helped turn an accident into a catastrophe. Our verdict? Not guilty of arrogance, but guilty of overconfidence. Over a century later, Titanic remains history's most famous warning that nature always gets the final vote. Accident or arrogance? What is your verdict?